So now we want to help the St. Marie Hospital and think about ways to reduce these growing waiting times. But how do we think about analyzing this system? It's incredibly complex. There's many different types of patients that are being treated in the emergency department. The paths that they take are very different. Some patients may require certain specialized tests like CT scans or ultrasounds and x-rays. Others may not need to have them. It's really hard to capture all of the possible flows going through this really complex system. And so we can think about taking a model, but do we need to model every single path, every single patient? The short answer is no. What we're going to do is take a very simplified view and keep in mind that models are never perfect. It's never possible to capture every complex feature that exists in the world, but models can be very helpful. And so what we want to understand and see through this example is that despite simplifications, these models can be very powerful to help us walk through and understand strategies to make systems better. So let's see how to do this. So the first thing that I want to do is just understand what is the process that I want to analyze. I want to understand the waiting time for patients when they arrive in the emergency department. And so, what is the process? Patients arrive, and then they go through this very complex patient monitoring, patient management, and discharge process. This process is different, possibly, for every single patient. But what am I going to do? I'm going to vastly simplify it and aggregate it into one single step. I'm going to look at the patient management and discharge step as one single step all together. Because of the heterogeneity of the patients, there's going to be a lot of variability in that step. But my model and my waiting time formula has an ability to capture this variability. Okay, so now we want to start identifying the different components of our queuing formula to see if we can use it. So, the processing time. That is the total time for the patient management and discharge process. And I'm going to look at that, and from the case, I can see that it takes, on average, 230 minutes. But there's a lot of variation there. So the standard deviation is given to us, and it's told as 3 hours, 180 minutes. On average, we see 163.5 patients arriving per day. But there's variation between the night and the daytime. More patients arrive during the day than at night. So about 2/3 are arriving during the day, which gives us 111.18 patients who arrive between the hours of 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So I can translate this. I have the average number of patients over the certain amount of time to get, on average, the inter-arrival time is 5.94 minutes. I can do the same thing in the nighttime. There's, on average, 52.32 patients arriving between 8 p.m. and 9 a.m., which translates into an inter-arrival time of 14.91 minutes. So you can see clearly that during the day, patients are arriving much more rapidly than in the nighttime. Next, we want to think about the number of servers we have. So a natural question is, what is a server in this context? It could be multiple things. It could be a bed. It could be a doctor. It could be a nurse. And when we think about servers, we need to think about what is the bottleneck resource. What is the limiting resource that is prohibiting us from treating more patients? For this particular exercise, I'm going to assume that a server corresponds to a bed. In your particular situation, if you are trying to utilize these tools, you would want to understand what is the limiting resource and use that as a server. Okay, so for this exercise, we're going to assume that a server is a bed. And we see that there's actually variation between the nighttime and the daytime for the number of beds available. So during the day, from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., all rooms are open, and so there's 40 beds available, 40 servers. M equals 40 from 9 a.m. At nighttime, some of the beds are closed. So we can calculate what's the average number of servers available between 8 p.m. and 9 a.m. to be 29.62. How do I get to this number? Well, for 4 hours, there are 40 rooms available from 8 p.m. to 9 a.m. And then 15 of those beds are closed for 9 hours. So there's only 25 beds available for 9 hours. I take the weighted average, and that gives me 29.62 servers during that nighttime period. We're also going to assume that the coefficient of variation for the inter-arrival time is equal to 1.